All right, good afternoon, everybody. Before I ask Jess to call the roll, I'll start off with my usual reminders to help our meeting go smoothly. First, I encourage everyone who's joining us by phone or video conference to mute your microphones while others are speaking to help us cut down on any background noise. Also, I'm going to ask chancellors and staff from system administration in the campuses to turn off your video camera unless you would like to speak or need to present an item. If after turning on your video, you want to be acknowledged to engage in the discussion, simply raise your hand. For those of you wearing masks, please remember to speak into your microphones loudly and clearly so everybody can hear you. And finally, remember to identify yourself when making comments or asking questions. And with that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Regent President Peterson.
Here.
Vice President Grieve. Regent Atwell.
Here.
Regent Bechtel.
Here.
Here.
Regent Cologne.
Here.
Regent Delgado.
Here.
Regent Hall. Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Klein. Regent Love.
Here.
Eads.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Regent Walsh is present. Regent Weatherly.
Here.
Regent Woodmansey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Jess. As we consider items on today's agenda, are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda? Regent Bechtel.
Yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from the Business and Finance Committee agenda item M, as in Mark, UW-Madison agreement with Pfizer.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Other regents?
Regent President
Regent Walsh?
Peterson?
Oh, Regent Jones, yes.
Yes, I'd also would like to, in order to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I will not discuss or vote on Business and Finance Committee agenda item M.
Thank you. Regent Walsh? Jess, are we having an audio issue with Karen?
I think the audio issue might be on her end. Regent Walsh, can you repeat yourself? I think we have you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. In order to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, I too wish to recuse myself from voting on the item related to Pfizer and UW-Madison.
Terrific. So please excuse yourself, all three of you, from discussing and voting on item M in Business and Finance Committee. Jess, please record these regents' declarations of conflict and recusal in the minutes. So before we get started with today's agenda, I understand that President Thompson has a couple of introductions he'd like to make. President Thompson, the floor is yours.
President
mute,
Thompson, I
Governor.
believe you're muted.
I'm not familiar with Tammy's being mute.
Governor, I think you're on mute. Wouldn't be a video meeting without this. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. First, it is my pleasure to introduce Jim Langdon, who has agreed to serve as interim vice president for administration following the departure of Rob Kramer. Jim has many years of experience with state government. He was most recently administrator of the DOA, Department of Administration Division of Enterprise Operations. Previously, he was administrator of the DOA, Department of Administration Division of Administrative Services. and he was also the Chief Operating Officer at the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Authority, more commonly referred to in the legislature as WEDA. In the early 2000s, he managed the Department of Administration, Division of Intergovernmental Relations, Enterprise Operations, and Energy Services. Jim earned an undergraduate degree from the UW-La Crosse and a certificate in executive leadership from the University of Notre Dame's Mendoza School of Business. He also has already proven his worth by negotiating on many contracts with the Department of Administration, and he has great relationships with DOA. And as you all know, it's very important to cultivate those relationships. And Jim has already done that many, many times to our success and to our benefit. I really would like to have Jim say a few words. Jim, would you please introduce yourself, and thank you for joining the team.
Well, thank you, Governor. And just briefly, I'm excited to continue my service to the people of Wisconsin here at UW System, and I look forward to working with the Regents, with you, and with your leadership team. So again, thank you for this privilege.
Thank you, Jim. And I welcome aboard, and I thank you so very much for all of your tremendous support and advice already. I also would look very happy to introduce Warren Anderson. Warren Anderson is our new Senior Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer. He went through a very rigorous appointment process. Many members of the Board of Regents who are here today were on that committee and recommended him. Warren Anderson. He's our new Senior Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer for the UW System. And Warren comes to us from the UW Eau Claire, where he served as Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Warren is a higher education professional with broad experience leading student affairs and equity and inclusion-related activities and initiatives at multiple institutions. He previously served as Vice President for Inclusion and Diversity, Chief Diversity Officer and Title IX Coordinator at Harrisburg Area Community College in Pennsylvania. And before that, he was Associate Provost for Student Success at Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania. Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, Diversity Initiatives at Clarkson University in New York. He was also Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at East Stroudsburg University of Pennsylvania and Director of Student Access and Support with the Pennsylvanian State System of Higher Education. Warren holds a doctorate in education with a higher education emphasis from Widener University, a master's degree in multicultural education and urban transformation from Eastern University, and a bachelor's degree in elementary and special education from Mansfield University of Pennsylvania. He's going to officially join us in the beginning week in January. And Warren, I hope next time I introduce you, you don't have so many titles. It takes a long time to read all your titles. So no more education for you, Warren. You've had enough degrees. So Warren is a great guy. You guys are all going to have a tremendous time getting to know him and enjoying him. His company has advised that he's just already given us several tidbits of information that we can use. Warren, thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I look forward to working with system administration, the president, the regents, of course, the chancellors of the campuses to develop what I think could be one of the most sustainable systems and foundations of equity, diversity, and inclusion in the country. I know we have the resources here. I know we have the wherewithal to do it. And I just really look forward and I'm humbled by the opportunity to lead this initiative for the UW system. So thank you again for the opportunity to join. I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you very much, Warren, and happy holidays, and looking forward to joining us after the new year. Thank you. Back to you, President Peterson.
Thank you, President Thompson. Welcome again to our new colleagues, and congratulations, Warren. We look forward to working with you both. The record of the November 5th, 2020 Board of Regents meeting has been provided. May I have a motion to approve this record?
So moved.
Stanford Taylor.
Thank you, Regent Jones and a second by Regent Stanford Taylor. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The minutes carry. Thank you. The report of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board has been provided as well. Any comments or questions related to that report? Seeing none, let's move on to my monthly report. First, I'd like to offer a brief update on the search for the new chancellor at UW River Falls. President Thompson and I finalized a search and screen committee to help identify potential candidates to succeed Chancellor Dean Van Galen, who resigned last summer. You may recall that due to the COVID-19 pandemic and at the request of the UW River Falls shared governance leaders, this search was temporarily postponed, but it's now fully underway. In accordance with Regent policy, the committee is comprised of 10 voting members, including 5 regents and 5 individuals who are knowledgeable about the duties and responsibilities of the position at UW River Falls. Regent Scott Bechtel has agreed to chair this committee, with Sylvia Kehoe, a professor of animal and food science, serving as the vice chair. On Monday, the Search and Screen Committee held a series of virtual meetings and listening sessions to receive input from students, faculty, staff, and community members on their priorities for identifying the university's next chancellor. Based on feedback from the listening sessions, the committee and the search firm will be developing the prospectus. Once the prospectus is finalized, the search is scheduled to officially launch in mid-January. At the end of the year, it's often a busy time, but it's also a very exciting time, especially for many students. We often think of graduation ceremonies as springtime events, but for many UW students, the big day happens this December. In coming weeks, about 10,000 students all across the UW system are expected to receive their hard-earned degrees. These graduates will be the workers, the leaders, and the innovators that will define Wisconsin's economy and culture moving forward. And the education they received at one of our institutions will give them the tools to do so. On behalf of the entire board, I congratulate our graduates and wish them great success. It's a short report this month, and with that, I'll conclude it and turn it over to President Thompson, who has his report to share with us next.
And let me thank you, President Peterson, for all that you do and your weekly sessions with me. I appreciate it very much. I also would like to congratulate the students, the graduate students right now as well. They certainly are the backbone of our state, and they are going to provide the economic muscle and the leadership in the future for our great state. So congratulations to all those graduates. I'm going to start first with an update on our response to COVID-19. And since our last board meeting, the UW system surge testing system, which we were chosen by the federal government to be the only university system to receive the resources to go in the field, and also provided us with 250,000 Binax tests. We've already administered 100,000 Binax tests to our campuses and to the communities surrounding our campuses, and as well as members of the general public. The response overall to our offering of this vital service, more broadly to the public, has been extremely positive. The chancellors in the system has received great accolades, and the chancellors have just done an outstanding job along with their staffs in setting it up and doing a great job. It's a real credit to those individuals on the campus who have made it possible. Terrific work, and I am very, very proud. And yes, it's another example of the Wisconsin idea in action. The Wisconsin idea is to to serve every person in all corners of the state. But now I hope that we will also embellish upon that Wisconsin idea and say, when there's a problem in our state, the University of Wisconsin steps forth and helps to handle it, solve the problem, and show the leadership. And that's exactly what we did. I should also point out, besides the over 110,000 tests of Binax in our 22 sites across Wisconsin, in a 6-week time frame, When we started, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a little color, when we started, about the positivity rate for the state was about 37%. And the positivity rate for the state is still around 22%. The positivity rate when we started was around 15%, well, closer to 20% actually, when we started with our surge testing capacity. Our positivity rate for our communities that are around our universities is now down to around 8%. And I talked to Trustee Greavy, and I talked to a lot of you, and I really think we had a tremendous impact on the university system, and with our surge capacity to drive down that spike that was at 32%. It's about 20%, 21% now. And on our communities around our campuses where we had the surge capacity, it's around 8 or 9%. So I think we can take a lot of credit in driving down the spike, which was really embellishing and engulfing the whole state of Wisconsin. I should also point out that these surge testing numbers are on top of more than 310,000 additional tests that we've administered to date on our campuses, including both the rapid result antigen test as well as the PCR test. And as we look ahead and plan for the next semester, we're going to continue our aggressive testing protocols, which are proving successful in keeping our campuses open and safe. The current goal is to test students living in residence halls when they return in January, to be able to test them all before they go into residence hall, and 1 week there, every week thereafter. This is more complete than we've had in the first semester, and off-campus students who use campus facilities, classrooms, and so on, are going to be tested every other week. If we're going to really survive this scourge of this COVID-19 and get our students back and get our classes open up, we have to do a tremendous amount of testing. And I'm very happy to be able to report to the Board of Regents, that we're leading the way and we're showing the way. And right today, our positivity rate on our campuses with a 312,000, this is something all of you members on the board should be proud of, is less than 3%. It's around 1.5% to 2%. And that to me is an excellent example of how safe the students are and the professors. And once again, I would like to point out that no professor, to my knowledge, has come down sick while teaching in class. And I recommended to the chancellors last week that I would like to see the goal of at least 50% of all classes be in person with the next semester with our expanded testing. I was gratified, and I hope you are as well, to hear that CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield told the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation just this past week that despite his early worries that college students returning to colleges and campuses might be trouble. What he's actually seen, and after his visit to Wisconsin, I think we were one of his prime examples, in recent months has proven that those worries were absolutely wrong. You will recall that Dr. Redfield visited UW-Madison in late October, where he noted the things that we are doing on all of our UW campuses. Wearing masks, practicing social distancing, and aggressive testing are making a real difference and show that mitigation is possible. And while the state of Wisconsin is registering high positivity rates for COVID-19 tests on campus, our UW students are showing, as I said, a rate of only 3% positivity, which is a good measurement that our testing protocols and culture of responsibilities are working. It was shortly after Dr. Redfield's visit, in fact, that the Department of Health and Human Services announced its partnership with UW system campuses to serve as the first in the country surge testing sites to make the rapid result Buy Now test available to the public. We're also working very closely with our federal congressional delegation and our state legislators and the Evers administration to ensure that all understand the significant costs associated with our ongoing effort to manage the challenges created by the pandemic. We're very appreciative of all of their interest and support, and they've all been extremely open and supportive. Looking ahead, we're confident there's going to be additional funding available to support these efforts, either yet this year or in the spring. I also have had the opportunity to engage and be on a program with the incoming Biden administration transition team. And I'm pleased to report that they are also impressed with our testing protocols, and I believe they too will be supportive of investing in our continued efforts this spring. I also would like to point out that the University of Wisconsin-Madison is doing an outstanding job in testing. They have had more in-depth testing with PCR than we did with the antigen testing, and Chancellor Blank is planning to test all of her students, both on campus in residence halls and off campus, twice a week. And so I really think that we need to applaud Chancellor Blank as well in this leadership role that she has taken on to make sure that her professors, teaching staff, employees, and students, of course, are taken care of. We've also worked very closely with the Wisconsin healthcare providers and nursing homes to set up a new program. And it's another way that I believe we can help the state of Wisconsin through our recently launched nursing student initiative. I'm very proud of this. Through the end of January, UW nursing students and others meeting minimum requirements in healthcare programs will have the opportunity to earn valuable experience and a $500 tuition credit if they complete a minimum of 50 hours of services in hospitals or nursing homes or other healthcare settings. A lot of students have asked to expand it to other things, and we intend to do that. And this is to help alleviate the tremendous problem facing our hospitals and the healthcare staff that are in our healthcare system right now. We work very closely with Wisconsin's healthcare providers and nursing homes to identify the need, and we're glad we can help. Again, it's the University of Wisconsin idea in action and reaching out and helping to solve a problem in our great state. Our nursing students are going to also play, along with our nursing deans. This is something that the nursing deans are very excited about, and I really am as well. Are going to play a big role in administering the vaccine when it becomes available. We're not going to be used in the first flight. We're going to receive a couple 100,000 doses of vaccine. If you know and follow the news today, FDA is going to approve the Pfizer vaccine, and we should be having, Pfizer's got about 50 million doses, but it has to be frozen at a minus 89 degrees, and you have to have 2 shots in order to be protected. So they'll only be able to vaccinate 25 million. 25 million is going to be held in reserve and shipped out by the federal government in 21 days to vaccinate again those people that received the first shot. Our nursing students are going to play a big role in this, along with our nursing deans. So we're doing, I think, great work on the campus, and it's done by the chancellor. We got a great group of chancellors and great professors and great students. But this is no time to get complacent. This COVID virus is insidious and relentless, and we must remain vigilant and not let down our guard. The promise of the vaccine is fantastic news and reason for hope, but we've got a long way to go and some hard work to do before that promise is realized. The Pfizer drug is going to be approved today, and Moderna's drug is going to be approved next Thursday, I believe, and they have also about 25 million doses that they've already manufactured. And Johnson & Johnson should have a drug approved in February, so we should be having lots of vaccine coming all over the United States and into our great state of Wisconsin. It means we must continue to reinforce However, until we get the vaccine, our culture of responsibility. Wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands. I'm very proud of our UW campuses because they have been leading in this way all along, and I think we are very happy with how the students have taken this responsibility on, and they've shown the way. In the fall, adapting to changing conditions usually meant isolating certain dorms and pausing in-person instruction at some campuses. I'm hopeful, we're all hopeful, that at some point in the spring semester, adapting to change will mean something very different, as is changing for the better by shifting more courses to the classroom and seeing more in-person events and activities. That's something we can all look forward to through all of this. And I will say again, I'm extremely proud of our chancellors, our students, our leadership here at System, and members of our campus communities who have stepped up to this challenge with determination and purpose. A lot of people did not believe, and I think even some members of the Board of Regents also had some doubt as to whether or not we could open up and stay open the full semester. And we've done that. And credit goes to a lot of people, and I'm very proud of all of them. The next thing I would like to say a few words about, President Peterson and members, is about a new UW system undertaking, and that addresses an issue that has long been one of my great passions, and that is our prison education initiative. We're going to be talking about that in more detail. It's going to be led by Vice President Sosa, and in a few minutes. I first started thinking about prisons during my early years in the Assembly when I was a defense lawyer. I believed then, and I certainly believe now, that we need to give young people who have committed a crime a second chance. Yes, a significant number of people in prison belong there, absolutely. But others, maybe as many as half of them, could be reclaimed to become useful members of society. 70% of our prisoners incarcerated today have got high school degrees, and over 1/3 have got some college education. These individuals are going to get out of prison someday, and the rate of recidivism right now, the rate of return of those prisoners is somewhere between 75 and 80%. What a waste of talent. What a waste of money for the taxpayers. And if we could develop a college program that's going to help in conjunction with partnership with the business community, and we can turn those around and reduce, I believe, that rate of recidivism down to 25 to 30%, which would completely pay for the program. If we can provide the opportunity for individuals who are incarcerated to get more education, to build their workforce possibilities, that it could improve individual lives, reduce recidivism, and strengthen Wisconsin's economy, and ultimately save taxpayers' dollars. When I started welfare reform many years ago, a lot of people indicated that it wouldn't work. And it wasn't cheap at the beginning, but it paid for itself at the end, with the added benefit of being the right thing to do. The Department of Corrections has key data on approximately 20,000 prisoners, and it costs us about $35,000 to $38,000 per year to keep them incarcerated. And as I said, 70% have a high school degree or GED, and 1/4 have some college degree credit. Our goal is to expand access to UW education to this population. The UW system has a unique opportunity once again to help accomplish this. It's another example of our commitment to a renewed Wisconsin idea for the 21st century. When there's a problem, help find the solutions, and that's the University of Wisconsin way. This could have a profound impact on people's lives, and people who are now in prison can know that they have the opportunity for a meaningful second chance, and for many, this could provide a welcome glimmer of real hope, opportunity, and optimism. I look forward to our discussion coming up. And finally, I'd like to say a few words about our proposed pay plan for UW system, faculty, and staff. As I said earlier, our faculty and staff have been absolutely tremendous throughout these extremely trying times. They've been committed to continuing to provide the top-notch UW education that we all expect from this great system, and have been flexible and ingenious in figuring out how to do that the best way possible. I've also seen firsthand how our individuals have rallied around meeting the state's need for testing, how they've adapted to delivering new classroom experience for students, and how they made the return to campus very successful. Our proposed UW system pay plan for the next biennium, which we are going to be hearing more about next, calls for a 2% raise for fiscal year 2021-22 and a 2.5% raise in 2022 and 23. I couldn't be more pleased or proud to champion this request and also congratulate all the individuals that work for the UW system. That concludes my report, President Peterson, and I turn the floor back to you. And thank you all for listening to me and giving me the opportunity to serve you and to make my presentation today.
Thank you, President Thompson. As board members, you can see we've had a very busy month since our last meeting. Tremendous progress is being made on a number of fronts. At this time, we are going to shift our focus and consider approval of the UW Systems 21-23 pay plan request. As many of you know and have seen, this has been widely distributed throughout the state, and I think comes as no surprise that we're moving forward with this recommendation. As I've said previously, it's one of the board's top priorities and one of our primary responsibilities to ensure that the UW system's talented faculty and staff receive compensation that enables our campuses to recruit and retain the best and the brightest. It's also incumbent upon this board to ensure that the UW system upholds its commitment to its mission and maintains its longstanding tradition of excellence and world-class reputation. As President Thompson just said, we are asking Governor Evers and the legislature for a 2.5% pay plan increase. That is a 2% raise for fiscal year 21-22 and a 2.5% raise in 22-23. Both UW-Madison, which has a separate HR system, and the remaining UW system institutions will be seeking these base pay increases for UW employees covered by the plan. That includes faculty, academic staff, university staff, and limited term appointees. That's our ask. Now let's turn to why. The market reality is that the gap between our UW employees' compensation and that of their peers has widened in recent years. According to the latest data, faculty salaries at UW institutions are about 12% below the national average. When adjusted for cost of living, the gap jumps to about 16.5%. We recognize today that such a sizable gap cannot be closed in one budget cycle. However, the state can certainly at least mitigate the size of that gap, or Wisconsin will pay the price in lost talent and sliding reputation. UW system institutions must compete nationally, even internationally, for the best talent, particularly among faculty. Our proposed pay plan should help put this in a stronger position for us to compete. In closing, I'd like to point out that despite some disadvantages, our UW employees continue to perform in areas that make the UW system the envy of our peers across this country. We should all be incredibly proud of their dedication. I want to reiterate emphatically that improved compensation for our UW employees has been and will continue to be a high priority for the 2021-23 cycle and beyond. It's an issue that impacts not only more than the 40,000 employees statewide, but also the ability of the UW system to fuel a stronger workforce and stronger businesses in Wisconsin, and the quality of education for our 165,000 students and what they receive annually. I would like to at this time thank President Thompson for his recommendation and support for this proposed pay plan for the next biennium. And with that in mind, Regents, can I have a motion to approve Resolution 7?
Regent Bechtel would move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Motion, may I have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Hall. Thank you, Eve. At this point in time, we have a motion and a second, and I'd call discussion of the board members related to the pay plan request that we'll be making this month. I should say questions or comments. Regent Bechtel.
Yeah, I guess President Peterson, you laid out the case, and thank you also for President Thompson and his indication of support and bases for that. You know, no one likes to spend money, but you need to spend money for talent, and that's what we're doing here. And we need to maintain, you know, I know we keep a close eye on headcount as well, so that's part of the balancing that we do here. So I'm very comfortable with this. I think it will, as you indicate, Regent President Peterson, narrow the gap, or at least not let it to get any more, because we don't know probably exactly what our competitors are doing in this regard. And I like very much the fact that we've got the 2 and the 2.5%, that while at the first part of this, as we're coming out of COVID, we're being more modest with the 2 and the 2.5, which is a little higher lift, you know, is done secondarily, and that's appropriate, prudent, and good financial planning. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Yes, this is very much a measured approach and something that we spent a fair amount of time as system leadership devising by way of our submission. Other comments from Regents? Okay. Seeing that I don't, I believe, see any other comments, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. At this time, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the pay plan submission signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Regents. Now let's move on to item 8. In August, this board approved UW Systems' $95.7 million operating budget request for the 2021-23 biennium. That budget request included 10 key initiatives which closely align with the state's most pressing needs and reflect a renewed commitment to the Wisconsin idea, as Governor Thompson talked about, for the 21st century. We intend over the next several months to take a closer look at these initiatives in our upcoming board meetings. Today, we will turn our attention to the UW System Prison Education Initiative, which President Thompson spoke about earlier in his report. Vice President Ani Morabel-Sosa will provide the presentation, but I believe President Thompson will kick us off with some initial remarks. President.
Thank you so very much, President Peterson and members of the board. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart and to me personally. It seems to me that when we lock people up for a reason, and there are reasons, there's no question about that, we should do our part to rehabilitate them. And what better place than to use the university system and the vocational system? And we have a lot of support for that, a lot of professors, a lot of institutions. In fact, I think all of the institutions want to be part of this. And I'm very proud of that. But I really think we could have the opportunity to be the first one in the country, I think, to turn a prison into a college. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be one in which we're going to be able to get it all done in the first year. But we have an opportunity to set it up and be able to allow prisoners to be taught classes and also to be able to match them up with businesses in the business community who need employees, who could also help us develop the curriculum for that particular business to be able to hire that individual when they get out of prison. So a prisoner can matriculate throughout the system, and my idea is that eventually end up having a graduation ceremony with President Peterson and Grebe and Walsh and all of you participating in that at Oak Hill in the spring, and having the university there and having the business community there and their families. And we have a chance then to establish something that would not have this revolving door, which is very expensive and doesn't help anybody. So with that in mind, and with the opportunity this presents, I'm very happy that the board has already supported it. I just wanted to put more emphasis on it, and I have asked Annie Morabella Sosa, our Vice President of Inclusion and of just about every facet of the administration to be involved in setting it up and kicking it off. And with that, the wonderful, gracious, intelligent, beautiful Vice President for the university system, Annie Morabella Sosa, who just returned from the Dominican Republic, refreshed and ready to go. And she brought the son with her, so Annie, go ahead.
Thank you, President Thompson. I wish I would have brought the weather too, not just the sun. Thank you, Regent President Peterson, and good afternoon, Regents and our fellow colleagues. As you have heard, there is quite a bit of passion in President Thompson's words and feelings with regards to this initiative. So next slide, please. Following President Thompson's vision for the renewed Wisconsin idea for the 21st century, we have established one big, audacious goal for this initiative, and that is to be the first higher education system in the United States to convert a prison into a college. We will thus offer college access to incarcerated adults in our state. Next slide, please. As we engage in this effort, though, we envision 4 principal outcomes. That is the ability to have increased the educational opportunity and attainment for men and women in prison, reduce recidivism rates by reducing the incarceration, as well as in reducing the cost to taxpayers, which, as the president said, currently ranges between $35,000 to $45,000 a year. And lastly, but not least, is the ability to be able to expand the Wisconsin idea to prisons and people in prisons and establish a sustainable and scalable model. Next slide, please. Our opportunity is clear. Almost 25% of people in prison have some post-secondary education. They are part of the 815,000 individuals who form part of a population that has some college, but no degree. More than 60% of them have less than 5 years to serve, and 95% of them will return to our communities at some point. Prison education programs have proven to be quite successful in Wisconsin and in other states. Thus, we have some best practices to use for adaptation and to measure success. For example, what might be the impact on students? Future potential employment and income. Reduce recidivism, the development of soft skills such as hope, trust, and teamwork. The impact on the UW system and the state will be increased enrollment in higher education and vocational training, lowered costs for prisons, and workforce development that meets the employer needs. What might be the impact on prisons? Improved behavior, enhanced morale, and increased interest in education among those in prison. There's also the potential for external private funding to support this initiative. Next slide, please. But to engage in this project, we will need to fully engage several key partners: the Wisconsin Technical College System, the Department of Corrections, business and employment leaders, and 2 internal partners. University of Wisconsin-Madison has already demonstrated expertise in teaching the population of students in prison. And University of Wisconsin Extended Campus has a clear expertise in providing remote distance education to a predominantly adult audience. Next slide, please. We have also been very intentional in identifying our strategy and implementation team for this initiative. I want to introduce them to you here, and I will ask them to acknowledge their presence with a wave, if they can. Mr. Stephen Hurley, a nationally recognized criminal defense attorney and adjunct law professor at UW-Madison. Mr. Peter Moreno, the director of UW-Madison's Odyssey Beyond Bars. Dr. Laura Dunnick, Senior Special Assistant in the Office of Academic and Student Affairs. Mr. Brian Nemore, Special Assistant in that same office. Mr. Aaron Seligman, Special Assistant also in my office. And Mr. George Kroninger, the Chief Academic Officer of UW Extended Campus. They will also be available to answer specific questions you may have on this initiative. Next slide, please. We will begin our work with a pilot project focused on baccalaureate degree completion that will complement the work already engaged in by our Wisconsin Technical College System colleagues. To do so, we intend to identify student eligibility in conjunction with the Department of Corrections and match the specific student interest and employer needs. We will adapt courses and develop programs accordingly. We will also develop a suitable learning management system and other technology and security solutions. We will recruit students and faculty for participation in the program. Next slide, please. Thus, we will need to build partnerships for student wraparound services, establish metrics and measures to evaluate student and program success, and engage in continuous assessment, evaluation, improvement, and scaling. Next slide, please. Now that we have articulated our overall project implementation plan, we are ready to proceed with some immediate next steps. To pursue external funding for the pilot programs, to establish memoranda of understanding among key stakeholders, determine the likely pilot sites and programs, and address the technology, security, and logistics concerns with the Department of Corrections. Next slide, please. And this is the fun slide. So with this, I want to thank you all for your attention. The team and I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Maribel Sosa. Excellent presentation. Get things started. I know we have the team here also to answer questions. Let me get us started and then I'll see questions from the board. I've got two questions that are hopefully not all that difficult, but really get the conversation started. In your second to last slide, you talked about the learning management system and the technology security solutions that we'll need to identify. In previous conversations we've had on this prison initiative, we've heard from Peter Moreno about some of those unique circumstances, but have we given some consideration as to how we're going to go about creating and standing up the learning management system to date?
Sure. Peter, if you're available to answer that question, please do so. I can't see on the screen if he's
Peter.
Oh, there he is.
There we go.
Hi, President Peterson. Thank you for having me. And I just want to start by applauding UW System and in particular President Thompson for leading this initiative. Regarding the learning management system, most universities employ a cloud-based learning management system, as UW-Madison does. The Department of Corrections requires that the learning management system be locally housed and have certain restrictions placed on the utility of it. So most universities that have created a learning management system that's been approved for use inside the prison systems have worked with their own divisions of information technology to create a locally hosted instance that essentially mirrors what their cloud-based instance of the LMS looks like. We've done some preliminary investigations here at UW-Madison as to what it would take to create that system here, but we're in the preliminary stages of that work. And in discussions with UW System, I believe UW System would like to work with their own IT folks to create that system in-house, but I can let Ani speak to those discussions in particular.
Thank you, Peter. So as Peter indicated, there are several ways in which we can go about doing this. Security is clearly one of the most important features of being able to engage in this, especially if we want to do it statewide. And so we've engaged our chief information officer on some of these discussions. And so we will continue to move forward with that.
Great. I've got one second question, and it has to do with external funding. You know, we talked about how this has been a component part of the biennial budget request that we'll put forward. But in my own mind, and I think in President Thompson's, there's an opportunity to not only seek funding from business and industry who'd benefit from this, but I would also think national foundations, folks that are very much interested in rehabilitating and reinvigorating, incarcerated individuals. Have we given some initial thought as to how we'd go about doing some of that additional funding pursuits?
Sure. We have engaged at least two private foundations that are very much interested in not only the concept of what we intend to do, but the breadth and scope of our approach. The Wisconsin idea is attractive to many individuals beyond the state of Wisconsin. And so they have indicated a lot of interest for support, and we clearly are going to continue having those conversations with them.
I'll just make one more comment and then open it up for questions. You know, certainly for our folks that are volunteering their time, I see Steve on the screen and Peter and others. I just wanted to give my sincere gratitude. This is a really exciting opportunity for us, and I know it's an addition to all the things that you already have on your plate, on your dossier. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I'll start with Regent Karen Walsh.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. I'm very excited about this program. I do have a question regarding the folks who are going to teach these classes. Do you anticipate that this will be in addition to their regular teaching load, or be wrapped into their teaching load and consideration of the total?
We've had conversations with several of the chancellors that are very interested in this, and there are a couple of our campuses that are already engaged in this kind of work, and so this would be part of what they currently do. But it will be likely a volunteer effort. Peter is, of course, one of those individuals that has garnered the support of other faculty to teach in this effort. And Steve Hurley also. Peter, if you might want to speak on some of the fellow faculty that are also teaching with you.
Yeah, so in the Odyssey Beyond Bars program, which is teaching at Oak Hill Correctional now, we have folks who are teaching in that program who have had longstanding relationships with the larger UW Odyssey project. So primary instructor there is Professor Kevin Mullen, who is teaching English 100. The Odyssey program as a whole has strong connections with the English department. Next semester, we're going to be teaching an Afro-American Studies class taught by Craig Werner and Anthony Black. They also have longstanding relationships to the Odyssey project. So to date, our teaching effort has been led primarily by folks who have had relationships with Odyssey in the past and have experience working with students coming from historically marginalized populations. We're now beginning to reach out to folks in other departments throughout the humanities primarily to gauge interest in teaching. The point that you brought up about teaching within load is coming up now regularly. There are a lot of professors, faculty generally, who have strong interest in teaching. Many of them are looking for ways to teach on top of their load. Ideally, of course, we would like to be able to teach these courses within load to alleviate the teaching burden on the professors and integrate that into the teaching mission of the university.
And if I might just follow up with one other question, you mentioned mostly humanities courses. What about some of the STEM classes, math, science, computer science, which I would suspect would be quite valuable to the business community in the state?
That will be part of the effort of us being able to recruit faculty that are interested in being able to teach in this population. And also one of the reasons why we want to make sure that we expand our reach beyond just the Madison and Milwaukee area.
Delgado, then Regent Bogost.
I support this thing tremendously well. And let me tell you that I'm surprised it took this long for President Thompson to bring it up. Because 5 years ago, I was in a meeting with President Cross and him, and he was banging on the table on this subject. And I found it to be a terribly good idea, something that the university could really get engaged. We have talked about it many times, but frankly, I think it takes the energy that Tommy Thompson has to make it happen. This is an essential necessity. We have prisons that are like file cabinets for people. And we got to get them out of there in a way that they can take care of themselves. I have experience knowing people coming out and having tremendous difficulty just opening doors. And I think this is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Regent Delgado, if I may be so bold to let you know that in my first meeting with President Thompson, he brought up the subject. And that was either July 1 or July 2. So it was either the day that he began or shortly the day after. So.
Regent Bogost.
Thank you, President Regent Peterson. And thank you so much. I think this is a huge opportunity. And I so appreciate President Thompson's incredible vision with this and Vice President Morabel Sosa's presentation. And I think that this is an opportunity, and dare I say a bipartisan opportunity to really get behind this. I think Governor Evers has had a long-standing commitment to criminal justice reform, and this really, plays a huge role in that. So it's really exciting. And I'm glad to see that we're partnering with institutions like the DOC. And I just had a question as far as I know, Anna, you had mentioned wraparound services. And I think what's so important with all this, as a new regent, one thing that I'm just always amazed with is the amount of resources that we have within the UW system. And pulling from there, for example, like Dr. Jackson of the We Lab, who works with higher education, mostly for African-American men, so many amazing places that for wraparound services to make sure that the people that we are working with, not just to teach to them, but what makes it obviously a really good teacher is to be able to teach to that individual. So wraparound services to make these people successful and to feel successful from the very beginning. I hope that we can really pull from a variety of sources. So with that being said, I'm sure that there's been a lot of thought into this as far as other wraparound services. And I know we're just doing a pilot program, but just to keep those things in mind. And if you have any thoughts on that, thank you.
Well, just to give credit where credit is due, Steve Hurley continuously reminds us of the fact that we're not just educating individuals, we also need to help them socialize again. Steve, if you want to comment on some of that, please do so. You're muted, Steve.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Vice President Sosa. It's no secret that the greatest deterrent to reincarceration is a good job. And it's also no secret to all of you that the key to a good job is a good education. But currently, we have a system in which people are too often incarcerated without the opportunity to learn or enhance social skills, something that most undergraduates learn simply through the process of matriculation. So it's not just qualifying for a good job, it's also keeping that good job. We understand that we have to assist the department through our efforts in teaching people how to re-enter and function back in the general population of Wisconsin. our efforts are aimed not simply at providing the education, but providing the necessary background to be able to employ that education when they're released. It's a large undertaking. We have to make sure that the services are there upon release that will enable them to continue their education in many respects. It means helping them find a way to subsist while they continue that education outside of the correctional institution. And we've got our eye on that intently. I can't tell you that we have every answer, but I can tell you that we're on top of the question.
Thank you, Steve. Regent Cologne and then Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you, President Peterson, and I want to applaud President Thompson for your vision, direction on this very important initiative, along with all of the other staff that you have involved in this. This is really exciting. This is not only the right thing to do, smart thing to do. Many of these individuals, when they get out, oftentimes won't have opportunities because they have that felony on their forehead, and the possibilities and opportunities are really hard for them. So an initiative like this will give hope and opportunity that can be productive members of society. So thank you very much for this initiative. I think this is very exciting.
Thank you, Regent Cologne. Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. I, like many of my board colleagues, am so excited to see this come to fruition and to see what this will spark in our entire state. Recently in the Education Committee today, we learned about the reverse transfer program, which is something that will be implemented. And I'm just curious if there's a way to pair these two together so that our individuals in the prison system can possibly receive associate's degrees. They're possibly put out on parole early, but they already have some of that education. So I was wondering, Vice President Morvososo, if you could speak a bit to this.
Sure. Well, first of all, the pilot that we're going to begin with is the completion of a baccalaureate program. So for those individuals that have already received an associate's degree. But as you indicated, establishing a reverse transfer will do so for all of the programming that we deliver, regardless of where it happens to be. And so I do believe that at some point, all prisoners who wish to be able to do that, some college, no degree, will also be able to participate.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments from regents? Regent Jones.
Thank you very much, Regent President Peterson. I think this is a terrific initiative and it's terrifically important as well. I'd like to ask, and I think, Steve, you maybe touched on this. What do you see, or how would you characterize the biggest obstacle to the success of the initiative?
Wow. You know, in truth, it's an obstacle course. When we talk about, for example, offering courses to students within the prison system, the first step is figuring out what courses do we offer. There are impediments in directing people toward courses that require licensing, for example. We can give them the education, but will they be able to be licensed in light of their prior offense? And to that end, we worked with, for example, recently we had discussions with DSPS about that. They're very happy to help. They're also excited about this project. So we have these obstacles in, first of all, just determining what the curriculum is going to be. Then we have another obstacle. We can provide a curriculum that is very useful, but the student within the prison system may not want to complete a baccalaureate degree because they're more intent on finding a way to get an income immediately upon release, right? And that drives them more towards a technical degree, which may not serve them well in the long run. It'll serve them better than no degree at all, but they may be able to do much better. So we have to educate them about the long-term prospect of income. We have to get them through that period after release when they may not have completed the baccalaureate yet to ensure that they do complete it. And then we may have to help them get a job when it's done. So that involves partnering not only with the Department of Corrections, but as Vice President Sosa pointed out, partnering with employers within the state. And we have to make sure that our curriculum meets those employers' needs as well. We have, I certainly don't want to characterize it as an obstacle, but this is new for us, and it's also going to be new and different for the Department of Corrections. And so it's going to be a great effort on both institutions' part to come together with a way of making this work. So it's a very large task, but we're all really excited about it. And I think we're all very dedicated to this, and we are going to make it work. I hope I'm addressing your question.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. And I think you acknowledge that when someone graduates from our program and gets released from prison, they can't just be on their own. They need services at that point as well.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I believe Regent Hall, you've got a question or a comment?
I do. This is both I'm out what about that Mike spoke about are so critical.
And you're breaking up a little bit.
Looks like a bandwidth issue. If you turn off your picture, we might be able to hear you. Yeah.
Steve, it seems like it's continuing. Maybe if you'd like, you could text me your comment and I could relay it to the full board. I'll move on to Regent.
Yeah, I'll send.
Great. I'll move on to Regent Greeby and then I'll wait to hear from you. Michael.
Thank you. I'll be very brief, and I fear that I'm violating former Regent Pruitt's admonition not to repeat things that other people have said. But first of all, I think this is such a creative implementation of the Wisconsin idea. And I don't think enough of us can say thank you and commend Governor Thompson and the entire team for what you are making happen. And the second thing I want to note just briefly, this is a great example of an attitude of how we make something good happen and finding a way to get it done as opposed to finding reasons not to do it. I have no doubt that there will be small and large obstacles. There will be challenges. I also have no doubt that this team is going to find a way to get it done. And I just want to applaud all of you for this really important endeavor, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Other comments from board members? I think in the interest of time, I'll wait to hear from Eve and then I'll relay that to everybody either via text or chat on this function. Let me close by saying this.
President Peterson, could I make two very quick comments?
Of course, yeah. Go ahead, President Thompson.
Thank you. This idea came over a beer. Steve Hurley and I were out talking about how we saved the world. And we were having a steak dinner and a couple drinks. And we talked about prison reform and we were going on. And Steve said, well, why don't we really be radical? Why don't we turn one of our colleges into a prison? So I remember that night. So this is really a Hurley Thompson initiative. And I want to give Steve a great deal of credit because he and I have been discussing prison reform for what, 10 years, Steve? And so I just want to point out that this good idea was over a beer. So for those people that are against drinking, sometimes good ideas come up, and I just wanted everybody to know that. The second thing is that Governor Evers is very interested. I don't know who said it. I think Amy did, about prison reform, and has reached out to me. And he has not endorsed this idea, but he wants to do something in prison reform. And we've talked and discussed prison reform. And I also want to point out that this is one area, ladies and gentlemen, that there's bipartisan support. I can't tell you how many legislators have already contacted me in the last couple days when this was made public about the desire to work on this, Democrats and Republicans. So even though it's coming from the University of Wisconsin, we may have a chance here to find something that can develop bipartisanship in the state. So there's a lot of positive things here, and I thank all of you for your tremendous support.
Thank you, President Thompson. At the risk of self-identifying myself, I may have run into you the night that this took place, and given it's COVID times and I know restaurants are hurting, we'll put a shout out to Delaney's, who may have been your purveyor of steaks that night.
That was the place, Drew. You could have been, you might have joined us. So maybe it was a Hurley Thompson Peterson idea. So
if I remember correctly, Doug Moe was there, so you may want to disassociate from some of that. Let me bring it full circle though, and as I was thinking, as you know, this is the start of this conversation, a very important one, but I was struck by what Steve had to say earlier in the conversation when he said, the best way out of incarceration is a good job. The best way to get a good job is to have a strong education. And the efforts of this team will be focused on giving those wraparound skills to individuals to succeed. And we're going to have to persist. So for the members of the board that are unilaterally supportive of this, I think we need to recognize that this is the start of the conversation and not the end. But we've got an extremely attractive runway here and a lot of hard work ahead of us. But I'm very, very excited about what we can do and the impacts we can have. So I certainly thank the board for their support. Ani, I thank you for your presentation today, and to all the team members that are lending a hand. We couldn't be happier with your service. Any other comments from members of the board on item 8?
Did send a text. President Peter.
I just got it, so let me read it. You look incredibly good today. No, different text. Kudos to this initiative. Yep. The wraparound services will be key, along with strong partnerships with employers and nonprofits. I am passionate around prison reform, and I'm so glad that the bipartisanship, which is needed to change the culture to make this change, is being discussed. And I think we couldn't agree more, Dr. Hall. Okay, any other final comments? Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your participation today. And again, Ani, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson, and thank you to all of you.
All right, at this point, we'll move on to item number 9. And I'm going to call on General Counsel Quinn Williams to provide an overview of the request to again extend the UW system president's authority to temporarily waive provisions of Regent policy documents in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. General Counsel Williams, are you with us? I see you down there.
I am, sir. Thank you, Regent President Peterson. We seek adoption by the board of Resolution 9 to continue to extend the delegation of authority to the UW system president to temporarily suspend the provisions of various Regent policy documents if the UW system president determines that any of the provisions of the Regent policy documents would prevent, hinder, or delay necessary actions to respond to the ongoing public health emergency or the abnormal economic disruption resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic through May 31st, 2021. The existing delegation was originally granted in April of this year and subsequently extended in June by the board to run through December 31st, 2020. The authority has been judiciously applied in limited circumstances and continues to be required to allow for prompt response to the rapidly evolving situation of the ongoing pandemic. And as a result, we would ask for adoption of Resolution 9. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Quinn. We have a resolution on the table. May I have a motion?
So moved, Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you, Regent Woodmansee. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Greeby. Okay. This has been an authority that we've exercised very rarely, but occasionally, and it's been deemed to be necessary and something that we'd like to continue into the first part of 2021. We have a motion and a second. I'd ask any discussion related to this item. Regent Walsh.
Just a quick question. Can you give an example of how this was used since we first instituted this?
Yeah, it's involved relaxed restrictions on the use of the transfer of auxiliary funds as an example, authorization for the president to enter into certain contracts and leases of real property related to the pandemic, and also the removal of the ACT, SAT test requirements for freshman applicants, GW institutions, and that was subsequently amended by the board into more permanent policies after those temporary suspensions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Other questions of General Counsel Williams? Again, I can assure the board, as I did previously, we'll be just judicious about this, and if there are anything that needs a more permanent attention, we'll bring it before the full board in the future. But with that, Regent Cologne, did you have a question? Nope. Okay. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of item 9 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to our committee agenda items, and we'll start off with the Capital Planning and Budget Committee. So I'm going to reach to Regent Jones to provide his update on the committee. Mike.
Yes, thank you, Regent President Peterson. The committee met this morning and received an update on the status of the 2021-23 capital budget submission by Senior Associate Vice President Alex Rowe. Ms. Rowe informed us that the UW-Madison Engineering Drive Utilities Projects planning has demonstrated that the previously approved budget is inadequate for the original scope. Therefore, an increase in the budget from $60 million to $73 million was approved as per our August 20 capital budget resolution. Our office continues to work closely with DOA staff to answer questions about our capital budget submission. Ms. Rowe also informed the committee that UW-Madison is proceeding with a planning study to construct a new 300,000 square foot building adjacent to the Brogdon Psychology Building to house the School of Computer, Data, and Information Sciences. Architect selection was completed 2 weeks ago, and she estimates planning will commence in late December, early January. This is a totally gift-funded project that will be a UW-managed product. We expect the project to come to the board for approval in the summer or fall of 2021. As part of the UW System's semi-annual reporting, the committee was provided with an update on the status of leasing activities since June 2020, and also an update of the UW-managed capital projects underway at system institutions. The committee considered 10 resolutions. On behalf of UW-Madison, the committee considered and approved item D to construct the Bascom Hill Lathrop Drive Utility Replacement Phase 2 project. This project is supported by the Utility Master Plan that recommended comprehensive North Campus utility improvements to replace or relocate utility systems due to age, condition, and location. This phase of the project creates a new civil, electrical, and mechanical east-west central utility corridor along Lathrop Drive. Again, on behalf of UW-Madison, the committee discussed and approved item E to construct the Veterinary Medicine Addition and Renovation project. This project constructs a new 3-story building just north of the School of Veterinary Medicine to provide, among other things, space for the small animal clinic, constructs new research animal biosafety laboratories and includes new offices and conference rooms. The project also renovates portions of the animal hospital and raises 3 buildings at the school's Charmony site. Next, the committee considered and approved on behalf of UW-Milwaukee, item F, authority to construct the Chemistry Building Center Utilities Extension Project. This project constructs an academic and research chemistry and biochemistry facility south of the outdated chemistry building that it is replacing to provide instructional and research laboratories and their associated support spaces. Also on behalf of UW-Milwaukee, the committee reviewed and approved item G to construct the Student Union Renovation Project. Among other things, the Student Union Renovation Project will focus on select portions of the facility's architectural configuration, deteriorated exterior envelope, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing infrastructure, as well as major building system upgrades. The committee next considered and approved on behalf of UW-Platteville an increase in the budget for the Boble Hall addition and renovation phase 3 project to restore funding to acquire equipment. The final phase of this 2-phase project constructs 3,800 gross square feet and renovates 46,000 gross square feet of Boble Hall to support the needs of the departments of biology, chemistry, geography, and geology. The committee considered and approved item I to construct 2 2019-21 classroom renovations instructional technology improvement program projects at UW-Whitewater and UW-Milwaukee. At UW-Whitewater, the Arts Sculpture Laboratory renovation project will reconfigure space to meet current safety, health, and ventilation requirements for sculpture and metal fabrication. At UW-Milwaukee, the Holton Hall Active Learning Classroom Renovation Project combines 3 existing classrooms into a single state-of-the-art active learning classroom. On behalf of UW-Madison, the committee reviewed and approved item J to complete the design and construct the UW-managed Memorial Union Addition and Repairs Project. This project affects 3 separate spaces within the Memorial Union. The first portion of the work constructs a small addition renovation on the 5th floor of the Memorial Union for the Wisconsin Union Directorate. The second portion of the work repairs areas of the Tripp and Union Theater exterior roof decks that are currently leaking. The third portion of work replaces a non-functional Union Terrace lift with a larger heavy-duty service elevator to support the Union's needs. On behalf of 3 UW institutions, the committee considered and approved item K to construct 4 all-agency maintenance and repair projects. First, at UW Parkside, replacement of the original telescoping motorized wood bleachers with a new code-compliant unit. Then at UW-Madison, approval to install chilled water isolation valve sets. And finally, 2 items at UW-Whitewater for projects to reconstruct parking lot 17 and to replace the synthetic turf at Perkins Stadium. The committee then reviewed and approved 2 minor facilities renewal projects. Item L, one at UW-Milwaukee that renovates space on the 9th and 10th floors of the Engineering and Mathematical Sciences building to create new flexible laboratory space for the School of Engineering. And one at UW-Stout that replaces 3 utility pits and utility lines located under State Highway 2529. Finally, the committee considered and approved item M on behalf of UW-Stevens Point to modify the 2021-22 capital budget to add the UW-Stevens Point Albertson Hall replacement project in lieu of the UW-Stevens Point Albertson Hall renovation project. As the design progressed on the renovation project, it was determined that the exterior envelope was deteriorated to the point where it required replacement. That necessitated a review of the entire project. It was determined that the renovation would cost more than 75% of a new building, so it was decided to proceed with a replacement. The replacement project will be constructed on the site of the existing building, necessitating its removal. In conclusion, I'd like to move items D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and M.
All right, a motion from Regent Jones. Thank you. May I have a second?
Regent Bechtel seconds.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. We have a motion and a second, and had a lot of items here. Any questions for the chair of the committee or members? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Regent Jones. We'll now move on to the Ready Committee, and I'll call on Regent Bob Atwell to provide his report of this morning. Bob, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Regent President Peterson. The Ready Committee reviewed and approved the minutes of its meeting, and the committee members heard two important presentations. First, we heard an update on the innovative research and technology transfer being conducted on our comprehensive campuses in collaboration with WISES. WISES Board Chair Dr. David Ward acknowledged WISES' continuing success with completion of its second decade of support for technology transfer and innovative research conducted at our four-year comprehensive universities. WISES has demonstrated leadership in advancing undergraduate research and technology transfer in a cost-effective manner, supporting campuses to build strategic partnerships with startups, high-tech companies, clinical organizations, and other innovators. WISES President Arjun Zanga led a panel discussion with Chancellor Schmidt, Ford, and Shields from Eau Claire, Parkside, Platteville, respectively. And this discussion highlighted specific and noble WISE program outcomes that have distinguished UW system faculty partnerships and, really importantly, student collaborations. Over the past year, WISES has received national and global recognition for its success. In terms of positive outcomes, one key measure is the increase in invention disclosures on our campuses, which have increased from 1 or 2 per month in 2015 to more than 1 per week today. COVID slowed that a little bit during the current year, but it seems to be coming back. The next agenda item featured a panel discussion on virtual career treks, linking UW students with Wisconsin employers for internships and jobs during the pandemic. Flexible and innovative response to the circumstances our students and faculty and campuses have experienced this year. UW system, as we know, represents a significant talent pipeline that supports Wisconsin's workforce needs and in the changing and challenging 21st century economy. Through our campus-based career services offices, UW students have numerous opportunities to connect with Wisconsin businesses and industries. Graduates who do so are more likely to choose to live and work in the Badger State as they begin their careers. And this fall, for the first time, career services offices across the UW system have teamed up to offer virtual career tracks. It was very exciting to hear the specific examples from career services at 3 different campuses, how they had worked together with other campuses throughout the system to facilitate a new way of students connecting. To highlight this program, WEDC Corporation Talent Initiatives Director Rebecca DeShane led a panel discussion with the staff and student career service representatives from UW Milwaukee, UW River Falls, and UW Superior. This is a current and powerful example how we are more effectively connecting campuses and community partners, and it serves as a powerful example of how our universities are innovating and reaching out in true Wisconsin idea fashion during the pandemic in a collaborative and cooperative manner. And then in closing, I provide a brief progress report on UW System Regent Scholars Initiative. My fellow Regent Weatherly has agreed to oversee this process on behalf of the committee. And this month, our statewide team of business and academic evaluators are reviewing submissions from UW faculty who brought forward their most innovative research initiatives and business collaborations for consideration. This is a very significant program to both recognize faculty success and to support further research, a lot of which involves employing students and giving them practical experience in the area. In early 2021, 3 new Regent Scholars will be honored as part of the Ready Committee's Regent Scholar Grant Program to support this faculty innovation and entrepreneurial excellence. I'd like to thank President Thompson for supporting this important program this year And I want to thank all of the participants, especially our colleague Kyle Weather for keeping the process moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Atwell, and I'll throw my same appreciation to Regent Weatherly for stepping forward. That's terrific. Good news. Any questions for Regent Atwell on the Ready Committee's actions of today? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to Regent Walsh, who will give us an update on the Audit Committee of this morning. Karen, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Regent President Peterson. The Audit Committee met this morning with Chief Audit Executive Lori Stortz reviewing the progress to date on the fiscal year 2021 audit plan. She confirmed that her office is making solid progress and expects to bring more reports to the committee in February. The committee approved a resolution adopting a revised audit plan for the Office of Internal Audit to defer the payroll and information security audits, which was passed unanimously. Ms. Stortz then provided a high-level summary of the results of audits recently issued by the Office of Internal Audit. This included post-tenure review, oversight of programs with minors, other affiliated organizations, P-card continuous audit results summary, and emergency grant aid payments to students under the CARES Act update. Overall, she was comfortable with responses from management. Pradisha Clifton, Director of Youth Protection and Compliance, provided an update to the committee regarding youth protection and compliance at the University of Wisconsin system. And so on behalf of the Audit Committee, I now move for approval of Resolution D2, adopting a revised audit plan.
Okay, we have a motion as it relates to Resolution D2. We have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Woodmansee. Any questions on the audit report? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of Resolution D2 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Regent Walsh?
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. That concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the Business and Finance Committee. I believe Regent Bogost is going to step in for Regent Bechtel, who had an overlapping appointment at this juncture this morning. I'll also remind Regents that several of you have declared a conflict related to item M, the Pfizer contract, so please adhere to that. And with it, I'll turn it over to Regent Bogost.
Thank you very much, President Regent Peterson, and good afternoon, colleagues. This is a lengthy report, so I would like to share my report covering this morning's Business and Finance Committee activities. In addition to contracts submitted, the committee approved collective bargaining agreements for trade forward by UW System and UW-Madison, requests for amendments to Regent policy documents, minutes, and heard several reports. Roll is called, and I will start with, after approval of October's minutes, the Business and Finance Committee received an overview of the draft annual financial report for fiscal year 2020. UW System Director of Financial Reporting, Rod Dole, discussed the primary drivers of changes in the UW System's fiscal year 2020 financial statements. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in several significant impacts, including reduced auxiliary revenues, reduced supplies and services expenses to mitigate the revenue reductions, and the receipt of federal CARES Act funding. Other impacting factors included reporting of the state's pension fund and post-employment benefits and state bonding activity. In total, the UW System's total net position remained relatively stable between fiscal years, increasing less than $40 million or 0.7% over our FY 2019 total net position of $5.4 billion. Because the Legislative Audit Bureau has not completed its audit for the 2020 annual financial report, an audit option is not included in the draft report. The report should be finalized at the end of this month. The committee approved the UW-Madison's proposed adjustments to tuition for certain graduate and professional degree programs in business, law, medicine, nursing, and veterinary medicine for the next 2 years. The proposed increases represent inflationary adjustments and are modifications to price competitiveness relative to peer institutions, with the funding increases used largely to support quality and access initiatives. Chancellor Rebecca Blank brought the request to the committee and had UW-Madison deans on hand to answer questions from committee members. The next item F, Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin and GUW-Madison Collective Bargaining Agreement with Building and Construction Trades of South Central Wisconsin. Dan Channon, UW Systems Administration's Interim Chief Human Resources Office, and Mark Walters, his counterpart at UW-Madison, introduced 2 collective bargaining agreements for approval. The committee moved forward a collective bargaining agreement negotiated between UW System and the Building and Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin. The parties negotiated for a 1.81% increase in base wages effective January 3rd, 2021, with a contract ending on June 30th of 21. The terms of this proposed contract are consistent with those in the contracts between BTC and the Department of Administration and UW-Madison. The next item, the committee approved an amendment to the UW System Report on strategic plans for major information and technology projects. It was approved at the February 20 board meeting. Utilizing funds already available within the UW system, 3 additional projects. A $4 million project at UW-Madison, a hybrid cloud infrastructure, a $3,287,768 project at UW System consolidating student information services systems, and another project at UW System with an estimated cost of $3,570,592. The Unified Identity and Collaboration Pre-Planning will a deep discovery of digital identify and collaborations across UW institutions. UW Systems Chief Information Officer Stephen Hopper presented to the committee and made himself available to answer any questions. UW-Madison's Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration, Laurent Heller, presented 5 contracts for consideration. The following were approved. An amendment to UW-Madison's existing agreement with Learfield Communications to market sponsorship rights for various university events. We approved the removal of the minimum revenue contracts for FY20 and FY21 and permit them to make other modifications necessitated by the impacts of pandemic-related restrictions. Item J was a master clinical trial agreement between UW-Madison and Arcus Biosciences, a California-based corporation founded in 2015, with the goal of developing highly combinable, best-in-class cancer therapies. This agreement is to conduct various clinical trials with the Carbone Center at UW-Madison over a 5-year period. The next item, item K, was a contractual agreement between UW-Madison and IMG College Seating for the rental of stadium seats to fans attending University of Wisconsin football games played at Camp Randall Stadium. The contract will be effective through March 31st, 2026, with 2 one-year renewals. Under the agreement, IMG will pay a percentage of gross sales generated from stadium seat rentals, estimated to provide between $800,000 to $900,000 in annual revenue to athletics. The next item L is a standard research agreement between UW-Madison and Opsis Therapeutics, a Madison-based company focused on bringing human-induced pluripotent stem cell-derived therapies to the clinic with the goal of treating blinding disorders of the retina, such as retinitis pigmentosa and age-related macular degeneration. The GAM laboratory at UW-Madison's Weissman Center will conduct studies in support of an investigational new drug submission and subsequent initiation of phase 1 clinical trials. And the final contract is item M, is a research services agreement with Pfizer Inc. This 5-year agreement is for the provision of statistical data analysis of clinical trial data performed by the School of Medicine and Public Health Department of Biostatistics and Medical Informatics. Item N, Vice President Sean Nelson returned to present on a revision to Regent policy documents RPD 21-6, dealing with the methodology for the calculation of PR balances. We approved incorporating a recommendation from Legislative Audit Bureau Report 20-7 to modify UW Systems reporting of auxiliary operations from Legislative Audit Bureau Report reporting of auxiliary operations program revenue balances to categorize only those program revenue balances resulting from positive department level balances and reports, but not categorize negative department level balances. Item O, Chuck Saunders, UW Systems Executive Director for the Office of Trust Funds, spoke about a revision to RPD 22-4, establishing 4 principles to guide institutional procedures relating to fundraising activities. The proposal retains the principles and guidelines in the policy, but reorganizes it and simplifies the language, enhancing clarity, removing an obsolete provision, and reformatting the policy to meet the updated standards for Regent policy documents. The next item, item P. The committee approved a revision of RPD 27-1, establishing guidelines for collegiate licensing programs within the UW system. The policy will be updated in the new standards for Regent policy documents and renamed collegiate licensing. UWSA's General Counsel Quinn Williams made himself available to answer any questions. Item Q, Chuck Saunders returned to give highlights of the investment reports for the period ending September 30th, 2020. UW System Trust Funds assets totaled $631.5 million, comprised of $482.43 million long-term endowment fund and $149.04 million in the income cash fund. The fund's public equity investments increased by 7.69% during the quarter, while the bond investments returned positive 0.81%, and the inflation-sensitive investments gained positive 0.96%. The private markets portfolio returned plus 3.66%. For the quarter, the long-term fund increased in value by 5.01% before fees, while the UW Fund Custom Benchmark increased by 4.90%. The income cash fund gained 0.03% for the period. Item R, Daniel Channon of UWSA Interim Associate Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, presented the report on faculty turnover in the UW system. This annual report provides a summary of tenured and non-tenured probationary faculty departures attributed to retirement, resignation, and non-renewed contracts for the most previous fiscal year. Key takeaways included continued downward trend in number of faculty across UW system, with a loss of 376 in fiscal year 2020, the majority, over 57%, choosing to leave. Item S, Daniel Channon continued on to his presentation on the report of faculty and staff-based salary adjustments and additional compensation payments. Fiscal year 2020 saw an increase of 1.62% of staff receiving base adjustments, a 5% increase in the percentage of staff receiving base adjustments for merit, equity, and market reasons, and the highest percentage of total budgeted salary dollars increase for the last 5 fiscal years, 1% or $25.38 million. Faculty received a higher percentage of base adjustments, a higher average payment here per recipient, and a higher percentage of total salary dollars compared to all staff, combined at 3.48% versus 1.97%. Item T, as directed in Resolution 11468, approved in July. Vice President Nelson reported to the Business and Finance Committee on segregated fee reductions approved by the UW system president for academic year 2021, resulting from programmatic changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. UW Milwaukee at Washington County, UW Milwaukee at Waukesha, UW Green Bay, Manitowoc, Marinette and Sheboygan campuses, UW Stevens Point at Marshville, and UW Stevens Point at Wausau all noted decreases primarily due to reduced programming. Item U, Sean Nelson provided an updated focus on the financial impacts of COVID-19. In conclusion, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I'm going to separate out just item M, for which 3 of the regents have already established that they have a conflict, which is the approval of UW-Madison agreement with Pfizer. So I'd now like to move for an approval of agenda item M.
We have a motion for agenda item M. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Regent Greeby. Any discussion on item M? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And those abstaining? We have noted as Bechtel, Jones, and Walsh. Very good. Regent Bogost, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Regent President Peterson. Finally, in conclusion, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I would now move for approval of agenda items C, E, F, G, H, I, J, L, N, O, and P.
All right, we have a second motion on the table. May I have a second?
Second.
Regent Peterson, thank you. Regent Bogost, you deserve a debt of gratitude from Regent Bechtel. As I counted, you've done all but 5 letters of the alphabet, which I'm not sure has been done previously. So thank you for that. You definitely deserve an extra breath here. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion related to all of those alphabetical items? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Regent Bogost, does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. We're going to move on to our final committee report. I'll be calling instead of on Regent Klein, Regent Manny Deeds to present a report of the Education Committee. I hope, Ed, that that's not a surprise.
No, I think I'm okay, but just when you thought you'd heard the last from me, I reappear. So thank you, President Peterson. My report today will begin with highlighting the 2 presentations which were provided to the Education Committee, which, by the way, President Peterson, is the most enlightened committee in the system.
I would expect nothing less.
I know. First, we received the annual report of the Wisconsin Partnership Program. Dean Robert Golden of the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health delivered this report. He presented a resolution seeking our reappointment of 4 members to the Oversight and Advisory Committee of the Wisconsin Partnership Program. Secondly, Vice President Morabel Sosa introduced us to the UW System Prison Education Initiative in advance of the presentation received this afternoon by the full board. The Vice President also described the efforts of the Office of Academic and Student Affairs to continue advancing success for transfer students. In support of these efforts, the Vice President sought our approval of 2 resolutions. They included approval of a resolution for reverse transfer implementation and approval of a reduction to the e-application fee. Finally, the business of the committee included approval of 2 new academic degree programs. They are a bachelor's degree in data science from the UW Milwaukee and a master's degree in professional science from the UW Oshkosh. We also approved UW Superior's request for a transfer plan with Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College for 2 associate degree programs. In addition, we approved the minutes from our October 8th meeting, as well as 3 resolutions which related to the updating of Regent policy documents. That concludes my report, and so therefore, President Peterson, I move for adoption by the board for resolutions C1 through 6 and resolutions E through I and resolution K.
Thank you, Regent Mandeens. We have a motion on the table. I have a second for the Education Committee's report. Second from Regent Cologne. Very good. Conversation, discussion related to the Education Committee. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. With that, that concludes our committee reports for today. Lots of work done, so thanks to all committee members for getting that accomplished in short order. Move on to item 15. Our next item is an amendment to Regent Policy Document 2.2, Statement of Expectations of Board Members. This policy update is one of several policies that the board is considering this month and is part of an ongoing review of all board policies. The proposed amendment would retain the provisions of the original policy, but would reformat the policy to meet the standards for Regent policy documents going forward. The amended policy would also clarify the expectation of confidentiality related to closed session deliberations, as well as update certain references to orientation and ethics training required for board members. Regents, may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 15?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Greeby. May I have a second?
Second, Mike Jones.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion on Resolution 15, expectations of board members? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of 15 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, our next resolution would authorize the Regent President to make changes to the board's 2021 regular meeting schedule as necessary to comply with social distancing and/or other health and safety recommendations. This would include the option to change in-person meetings to virtual meetings and to cancel one day of a 2-day meeting if the board's business allows. Approval of these changes to the board's meeting schedule would entail a suspension of the board's bylaws, which requires an affirmative vote by 2/3 of the board members. With that, may I have a resolution to approve number 16?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Greeby.
Second.
Second, Regent Bogos. Discussion on the authorization to alter our calendar. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Very good. Finally, I'll call on Sarah Haribo, the UW Systems Title IX and Clery Administrator, to provide an overview of the permanent rule changes and the language proposed for Chapters 4, 7, 11, and 17 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code, as well as an update on the next steps in the rulemaking process. I think Sarah is with us. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Good afternoon. So clear with you.
Sarah, you're breaking up a little bit. Could you try and drop your video?
Presented in August. So KDA has presented to the board on July 9th, July 20th, and August 5th to address the new Title IX regulations released by the Department of Education in May of 2020 and to discuss our proposed plan for compliance by its effective date of August 14th, 2020. On July 20th, the board granted UW system staff the opportunity to begin drafting rules necessary to come into compliance with the federal regulations. On August 5th, the board approved the emergency rules and interim Regent policy document 14-2 that are currently in place that brought us into compliance by the August 14th effective date. Since that time, our drafting team has been working on the permanent rules now before you to make edits and circulate for public comment. Permanent rule drafts were circulated internally with the same stakeholder distribution that we have been using throughout this process for the comment from October 12th to October 21st. This distribution included, but was not limited to, the President's Cabinet, academic affairs, chancellors, provosts, senior student affairs officers, HR directors, affirmative action, equal opportunity officers, athletic directors, student conduct officers, Title IX coordinators, prevention officers, and Clery officers. On November 5th, we were before you in order to seek approval to take the proposed permanent rules out for public hearing on November 30th, along with approving the hearing notice. Upon your approval, we move forward with the public comment period and the public hearing. Today, we are seeking the board's consideration and approval of the permanent rule in final form prior to submission to the governor's office. The core drafting team, consisting of myself, Tom Stafford, Office of General Counsel, UW System, Jolie Erden, General Counsel, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Kim Anderson, Title IX Coordinator, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Rachel Jarris, General Counsel, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Lauren Hasselbacher, Title IX Coordinator, UW Madison, have reviewed and made adjustments based on comments, feedback received in our own review. The members of this core drafting team are present at this meeting to assist and answer any questions you may have regarding our process or substance. Once the permanent rules are in place, we will be asking for the board's consideration and approval of permanent changes to Regent Policy Document 14-2, sexual harassment and sexual violence. This policy revision will go through the board policy process, and the changes will bring this policy in line with the permanent rules before you. Some key points on the emergency rules versus the rules before you now, which are the permanent rules. There are not any major substantive changes between the emergency rules and permanent rules. As I stated in the last meeting, the most notable change to the permanent rules was reorganization of the rules into subchapters for ease of reading and to improve organization. For example, in UWS Chapter 17 is UWS chapters 4 and 11 are organized into subchapters as well, which provides clarity in what procedures apply for Title IX related cases and procedures for non-Title IX related cases. The edits made to the permanent rules in this round focused on clarification, structural, grammar, and word choice. In the red line drafts before you today, we also incorporated feedback from the Legislative Reference Bureau regarding structure, grammar, and language usage preferences. Title IX and non-Title IX employee and student processes. The student process for non-Title IX and Title IX are essentially the same, and both include provisions for a live hearing. The section governing student misconduct is organized so that all sexual misconduct falls under one subchapter with provisions that outline when a case is considered Title IX and when it is considered non-Title IX sexual misconduct. UWS Chapter 4 and 11 govern employee and faculty misconduct and are separated into subchapters that address non-Title IX procedures and Title IX procedures. It should be noted that both procedures outline hearing requirements, including cross-examination and the right to limit the ability of parties to cross each other. The socialization plan that we used for the permanent rules mirrored that of the emergency rules and included engagement with stakeholders across the system, as I listed before: the President's Cabinet, academic affairs, chancellors, post, senior student affairs officers, HR directors, affirmative action and equal opportunity officers, athletic directors, student conduct officers, Title IX coordinators, prevention officers, and Clery officers. I was able to connect with students through the assistance of Regent Woodmansey and by asking various stakeholders to relay to student groups with an emphasis on those that are underrepresented. Understanding the impact that these rules had on the student population and will have, I worked with individuals to better inform students. I was able to present at a system-wide meeting of student government leaders and senators and provided them with a fact sheet on the new regulations. In addition, working with Ann Minson, I was able to post the fact sheet to the Student Leader Canvas site. I also attended a meeting of the UW Whitewater Student Government, where I presented on the rules and answered their questions. We also worked with the UW System Communications team to make sure that we use social media and other channels to spread awareness about the public comment period. We did receive one internal comment from an employee at UW Oshkosh who was concerned about the process in the chapter governing students related to sexual misconduct matters. The drafting team discussed her concerns, and then I and Tom Stafford met with her to address her concerns. A brief comment on the pending lawsuit and the change in administration. An issue that we discussed at the last Board of Regents meeting is what options we would have in the case of a change in the regulations due to the pending lawsuit and or a change in administration at the federal government. In conversations with our associates at the DOJ, it appears that any action that could be taken, absent a significant ruling in the lawsuit, would take at least a year. Preliminary inquiry has shown that changes to the new regulations would require going through the federal rulemaking process or a congressional action, both of which would take time. Federal rulemaking would take approximately 1 year. Even if the new federal administration plans to repeal or not enforce these rules, failure to proceed with efforts to come into compliance on our end could result in significant legal liability if taken prematurely, given that Title IX provides a private right of action to individual parties. Quinn Williams and I remain in contact with our attorneys at the state DOJ on these matters. This concludes my presentation. As I mentioned earlier, the core drafting team is here to also answer any questions related to our thought process and changes that we made to these drafts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And we were able to hear you loud and clear, so I appreciate that. Also want to recognize Regent Woodmansee for making a line of communication available to students. It's been a big consideration for many of the Board of Regents to make sure we're getting that input, so I thank you for that. Questions or comments from Regents on the report from Sarah, or questions for the team that's also joining us here today? Regent Bechtel.
Regent Peterson, I guess just a comment. I'm going to vote in enthusiastic support for this. A lot of work has gone into this. We've seen a tremendous amount of written material that we've had to review as we've gone through this process. As Sarah just described, there was a tremendous amount of outreach on the campuses and public opportunity for comment and inclusion. Regent Woodmansee, thank you for everything you've done. And for me, and I really support, and we're part of this, that we, while there could have been a narrowing of the type of complaints and the procedures, we kept, a very good existing system kind of in place. So I just want to, when we take all that together, and then when the comments come in, we get one comment. I just think it's probably good evidence that the process that we followed, even though it was expedited and very a lot of material to go through and a lot of inputs, kudos to Sarah and the team and to the Regents for taking a real pragmatic approach and being inclusive and listening in the process. I think the best evidence is this end product and the one comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that acknowledgement, Scott, and I couldn't echo that further. The amount of work that's been done in this truncated amount of time has just been really, really remarkable, and Sarah and the whole team deserves a great recognition for that. So thank you. Other comments of Regents? Regent Bogos? Go ahead.
Thank you, President Peterson. And thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation and all the hard work to the team. I know you've been working tirelessly for months on this. Unprecedented in the amount of time of what you've had to accomplish, unfortunately. And I know, as you stated, I was going to comment on, obviously, the before us is the new administration. President-elect talk is that changes will be made. And yes, I understand it's because it was under the federal rulemaking procedures, it will take about a year. We may find ourselves back here another year to try to unwind what was all the hard work that was done. But saying that, I just want to state going forward that there is a lot to this. And I think that, I think our next steps with all the Title IX people listening is to make sure that because of these changes, I know that we worked hard to try to have a parallel in the rulemaking to ensure that this doesn't have a chilling effect on reporting, but I think it has. And so we need to work hard to make sure that for reporting purposes going forward, that we try to do whatever we can to undo the chilling effect. So that was just more of a comment, but thank you again for your hard work.
Yeah, good comments, Regent Bogos. Thank you. Other comments of board members? Questions for Sarah or the team? Okay, again, just will close by saying, great job to date, lots more work to do, but I think we're staying to course, and we're certainly grateful for that. With that, we need a motion for Resolution 17. May I have one?
So moved, Regent Walsh.
Thank you, Regent Walsh. And a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Greavy. Any further discussion on Resolution 17? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. To our Title IX team, thank you so much for being here today, and happy holidays. At this point, I'll seek any Regent communications, petitions, or memorials. I don't see any, so I'm going to take the opportunity to share mine in view of a communication as we end the year. So as we rapidly approach the end of the year, I wanted to take just a moment to personally thank each one of you for your hard work in 2020. As a governing board, despite the uncertainties the pandemic has presented, we've had an exceptional year and have a very positive outlook for 2021. This outstanding series of results wouldn't have been possible without your flexibility, cooperation, and dedication to rise to the many challenges that we've faced. I want to take a minute to thank President Thompson, his senior leadership team, our chancellors, provosts, faculty, and staff for leading by example and being selfless throughout this fall semester. The contributions each of you have made in the delivery of curriculum to our students, the provisioning of resources for our campus communities, and the testing we've been able to administer on our campuses and in our communities that we serve is truly the Wisconsin idea in action. Strong organizations rise to the occasion when challenges present themselves. I couldn't be prouder of our collective efforts beginning in June right up until today. Looking ahead, I'll ask everybody to maintain their steady focus so we can have another successful year, something we can only accomplish if everybody stays healthy and safe. Although December is a uniquely special time of year for many of us, we must remain vigilant during the upcoming holidays and practice caution. Please, for your health and the health of those that you love, wash your hands frequently, wear masks, social distance, and don't attend large gatherings. If you think you've been exposed, isolate yourself from others and get tested. 2020 has certainly been a year like no other. And while the COVID-19 pandemic hit our country and the UW system with full force, the promise of new vaccines coming shortly should give us all great hope. Again, I offer my heartfelt thanks for all of your contributions this year. I very much look forward to what we will accomplish together in 2021. Happy holidays to all of you. And now, at this time, I will ask all board members to stay on the line while we complete the roll call to move into closed session. Following the vote, please remain in the meeting while Jess clears the line. Vice President Greavy, will you take the opportunity to read the motion to move us into closed session?
I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to A, consider compensation and implementation of the 2019-21 legislatively approved state pay plan adjustment for individuals with salaries that exceed 75% of the UW system president's salary as permitted by section 1985 1C of the Wisconsin statutes. B, consider compensation adjustments and implementation of the 2019-21 legislatively approved state pay plan adjustments for chancellors as permitted by section 1985 1C of the Wisconsin statutes. C, consider emeritus status for the UW Stevens Point chancellor as permitted by section 1985 1F of the Wisconsin statutes. D, consider personnel evaluations of chancellors as permitted by section 1985 1C of the Wisconsin statutes. And E, confer with legal counsel regarding potential litigation in which the board is likely to become involved as permitted by section 1985 1G of the Wisconsin statutes.
Regents, we have a motion. May I have a second to move into closed session?
Second, Mike Jones.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor will move to call the roll. Jess, take us into closed session.
Regent President Peterson,
Yes.
Regent Vice
Yes.
Regent Atwell,
Yes.
Yes.
Regent Bogus,
Yes.
Regent Cologne,
Yes.
Regent Delgado,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Jones,
Yes.
Regent Klein, Regent Levzo,
Yes.
Regent Manydeeds,
Yes.
Regent Peterson,
Yes.
Regent Saffold, Regent Stanford Taylor, Regent Walsh,
Yes.
Regent Weatherly,
Yes.
Regent Woodmansee.
Yes.
We are now in closed session. One moment, please.
All right. Thanks for clearing the line, Jess.